Good afternoon, everybody. It's Dr. Brown here, and I would first like to thank you for your continued support of all the things that we're trying to do, that you're trying to do, that we're all trying to do together to continue to get through this pandemic. Today, what I'd like to do is present to you some information about what it would actually take us to be able to reopen school for more students, should we be able to get permission to move from 6 feet of physical distance to 3 feet of physical distance. So I'm just going to share my screen here in just a moment. Let me see if I can get this right. I feel like I'm getting better every time, but you know, and like anything else, there's always room for improvement. So there we go. There's my shared screen. And I'm going to put it in presenter mode here. So just like I told you, it's kind of our return to school town hall. This isn't being live streamed because I know everybody's busy. Want to give you a chance to review it, and then I'm going to supply some contact information if you've got questions. So the objectives for today, in as short of amount of time as I can, would be to give you the guidance needed that we would have to have in order to make a change possible, to tell you what all the different challenges are on our end, to be able to shift to having all students back again at 3 feet of physical distance instead of 6 feet of physical distance, and to share the timelines that are necessary, because I think that it's important for all of us to know what we're looking at. It's not something where if the governor's office said we could make a change tomorrow, we'd be able to make a change tomorrow. We need some lead time to make some things happen on our end to accommodate students and our staff safely. And then lastly, you know, to take your feedback. Won't be able to take it today live because this is a recording, but wanted to be able to give you my contact information. And I think all of you know how to get a hold of me anyway, if you see me on the street or wherever. So what are the things that need to happen in order for us to get permission to be able to bring students back? First of all, we've got to get an order from the New York State government. It's got to come from the governor's office or from the New York State Department of Health. There will be, if they make that recommendation, there's going to be a lot of things that go with it. The big thing that we need on our end to plan is we need permission to be able to go from 6 feet of physical distance to 3 feet of physical distance for all school areas. The classrooms, our special areas like physical education, music, arts, tech, all of that. That also includes our school buses, food service, and in our buildings and grounds department, they're going to need to have what the new cleaning protocols might have to be. Now, my guess, just in watching some of the decisions that the governor's office has made in the past, it's not going to surprise me if the governor's office says, if your local Department of Health says that you can go from 6 feet to 3 feet, then do it. He's not said that. I'm just kind of telling you what I think he might say. No criticism. He's been known sometimes, though, to divert decisions to the local places, to the local schools, to the local departments of health, wherever. I hope in this case for the schools and for the local departments of health that his office will put something out that will come from his office through the New York State Department of Health. As of today, which is March 3rd, we've had no changes. One of the pieces we also have to work on in terms of figuring out how to reconfigure our buildings and all of that are how many virtual students will be returning or will continue as virtual learners. We can't see a scenario where the governor is going to say, okay, if your child was fully virtual this year, they have to come back. I just can't see that happening between now and June. So we want to find out how many of those fully virtual students will be coming back so we can put them in our student counts and make sure we have things happening. So those are kind of the changes and things that we need to have in order to put any type of process in motion. I want to go through with you just briefly what has to happen in each building, in each area of our district in order to make a shift, again, from 6 feet of social distance to 3 to get people back. If our remote students return, and I believe as of right now, we have 8 remote students left, fully remote students left at Valley, we may need to shift one of our remote teachers back to teaching in the classroom, which is great because it'll keep our class sizes reasonable. But that might mean that some of our students would need to change their teacher for the rest of the year. We'd probably do that by lottery, but just to be fair to everybody, but that might be one of the changes that would have to happen if we bring another teacher back into in-person instruction. We would also probably go back to having physical education in our gymnasium. Now, could we use outside as the weather gets warmer? Absolutely, but we'd be able to also use the gymnasium if necessary, because we could have more students in that space. Uh, Gorham Intermediate is probably the biggest, in my opinion, probably the biggest challenge that we're going to have. It has nothing to do with the people who are there. It has to do with the way the building is designed. It's a beautiful, beautiful building, but it was built before a time where flexible seating and other things like that were brought into the thought about how to design schools. So in order for all of the students to be able to come back at 3 feet of physical distancing instead of 6, Mr. Paschal, the principal there, is going to have to create an entirely new master schedule. Now you may say to yourself, what's that going to take them? 15 minutes, a half an hour. In the summertime, when you're working on creating a master schedule and nobody is here and you're generally just rolling it over, that can take 1 to 2, 3, 4 weeks to accomplish. He's already been working on some thoughts about a change to a master schedule, but it's going to take some time. He's going to have to change the number of cycles of days and all of that. And along with Valley, when he has to remake the master schedule for Gorham, that may require some students to change classroom teachers, primarily at 3rd and 5th grade. Again, that would happen probably by lottery, to be fair, but just to be transparent, as I always am with you, if we have to add staffing, or if we have to change rooms, because not every room is a regular class size classroom. So if we're going to put more students in a space, we may have to add a teacher in order to do that. Some students may have to change who their teacher is for the rest of the year. We don't know yet, but that is a possibility. We would require additional cafeteria and physical education space, even with 3 feet of social distancing. 3 feet is different than 0 feet. And in order to do that, we do have some other spaces at Gorham, but those would be spaces that we have to push people out of in order to fit people in for physical education and especially for lunch. Also right now, our drop off and pickup works fairly well, but we still do clog traffic on the highway, on the road. And if we were to go back to having everybody here every day, that's just going to make that worse. So we're going to have to adjust that. One of the pieces that we're going to put at the bottom of all these slides is we're looking at the concept of, if the governor's office gave us the green light to shorten the timeline of this change as much as possible, we may ask the community to have some virtual days of instruction so that we can do conversions on our end in a quicker way. And I'll show you that when we get to the timeline slide. At our middle school, our students are going to remain cohorted, so we don't need to really adjust the master schedule. We may need some additional spaces, just like the high school is going to need some additional spaces. So Dr. Cole and Ms. Taft are going to have to work together to figure out what that would look like, but they would need to be for some classrooms, physical education, and lunch. We'd also have to get to an understanding that there may be less frequent cleaning, but that may not be the worst thing, because students would be together in the same spaces longer. So that probably wouldn't be as big of an issue, but I wanted to give you all the challenges that are on our table. At the high school, we would need to have some master schedule adjustments to be able to accommodate all students at 3 feet. And just like in the middle school, like I mentioned, some additional spaces. The chorus and band piece, I think it's ridiculous now that we can have wrestling and basketball and that kind of thing, but we still have to have our chorus and band members 12 feet apart. I think that's just ridiculous. So we continue to push to have that distance changed, but we will have to still do some modifying based on the number of participants in chorus and band. Like I said, I'm still pushing for whatever our athletes are getting right now. I would want our chorus and band students to get the exact same thing, just from an equity standpoint. In special education, our students will continue to receive their services as guided by their IEP, but there may be some scheduling changes, specifically with related services, because right now we have fewer students in school If we had all of our students in school, that may change group sizes, and we would stay certainly within any laws or regulations, but it may change group sizes from how they are today. And then also the time that a related service might be given may change as well, because that related service professional may have their schedule changed for their day. In curriculum and instruction and assessment, one of the pieces that we learned is that the federal government is not going to excuse schools from giving the 3 through 8 tests and a limited number of Regents exams. So what will happen, even if we return to 3 feet of physical distance, we're still going to have state testing, and we're still going to have some Regents exams. So we're going to need some protocols to be able to follow, and some guidance for students who are either still remote and have to take a test, or students who are now here face-to-face, along with any protocols for cleaning of testing or curriculum materials that might change or have to be updated. And maybe nothing will, but we try to put everything on the table. In transportation, this is another challenge or a pain point, I would say. Students would have to be 3 feet and masked on the bus. I can tell you right now that even with 3 feet of social distancing, we can't get all of our students here if they all wanted to ride the bus. So we're going to have to change some transportation routes. That's going to impact some pickup times, some drop-off times, and it may impact the length on the bus time. So, you know, some of the things that I've been thinking about to attack this particular challenge would be, you know, we know that children from the same daycare or childcare situation can sit together on the bus. We know that siblings can sit together on the bus. What I might be looking to do with permission would be to say, if there's, reach out and say, you know, who are your children's friends? Do they hang out after school? Do they come to each other's houses? And if that's the case, maybe getting some kind of sign off or permission from you as parents to allow them to sit together on the bus as well. And that would certainly help us with transportation. And then I would also be saying, if people could still transport yourselves, I would probably ask you to do that. But if you can't, you can't, and we'll try to find ways around that. In food service, I find this to be another challenging point too, because what we see is that COVID is transferred a lot by small gatherings where food is being eaten. So, you know, our food service staff and our director have done a great job of having everybody spaced out and having everything followed. Can't talk today, but we're going to have to make some changes in how students get and consume breakfast and lunch. We have to evaluate, even at 3 feet, how that's going to work. And at the same time, we're under a significant amount of construction still at the high school. So we're probably missing 12 to 15 spaces right now because of construction that we would normally use. So it's an extra constraint at our high school that we have to kind of figure out. And then we've also got to evaluate the time needed to order and receive food for every student. So let's just say the green button was pushed today, sometime tonight, and you know, do we have to order more food to be able to accommodate more students being here, and how long does that take for the food to get here and be prepped and all of that? And our buildings and grounds and our director and all of our facilities workers, our custodians, cleaners, have just been phenomenal for us. We have to make some significant moves of furniture and teachers in each building, and that's going to require time when kids aren't here, and that can't be. It's going to be more than a Saturday or a Sunday to get that accomplished. Also, we are going to have to figure out what cleaning protocols are going to get updated, and then provide all the necessary training that goes along with that. We currently have 6 additional temporary cleaners that we've been using. We will need at least those 6, if not a few more temporary cleaners, to make sure that everybody remains safe. In technology, we've got classrooms that may have to have changes to computer and digital media setups. If you're a parent, I'm sure you've had contact with one of our people in instructional technology. They've been doing great work. We would need some time for them to make some changes in classrooms to be able to get things ready as well. So just told you all the challenges that we have, and I wanted to kind of let you in on a little secret about how we calculate transition time. And this is something that I learned. I will say it's one of the few things I learned, kidding, in my doctoral program related to project management. And this is called the quality triangle, and I use it a lot. It's trying to figure out how long an initiative will take to get done the correct way based on how many resources you have and how much time you have. So when we calculated the transition time to be able to go from 6 feet to 3 feet in each area that you'll see on the next slide, we looked at this triangle and we said, we want a quality and correct transition. We want to do it one time. And so that measure twice, cut once theory, we want to be able to do that. So with the resources that we have, how much time is that going to take? The way that this triangle kind of works is you can have any two of these things, but you can't have all three. So for example, if we want a quality transition and we have limited resources can be money or people, then we have to understand it may take a little bit longer to get accomplished, and so on. So when we look at this next slide here, the transition times that we think it's going to take, again, to go from 6 feet to 3 feet by building, and we included the transportation needs, the buildings and grounds needs, the technology needs, the curriculum instruction, and food service needs. We feel that it would take Valley about 2 weeks to make a full transition from 6 feet to 3 feet and be able to get all of our students back. Gorham would be about 4 weeks. And like I said, I mentioned a lot of the classrooms at Gorham are not your standard 770 square feet classrooms. And that presents just an extra set of challenges that the other buildings don't have necessarily. So that's why it might take a little bit longer at Gorham to make a full transition from 6 feet to 3 feet. Middle school is about 2 weeks because they've got the cohort. They don't need to do a ton of master schedule adjusting. They have to move a lot of desks. They have to get a lot of teachers moved. That's about a 2-week transition. And in the high school, we're talking about 3 weeks. The additional week is really for Ms. Taft and her staff to accommodate the impact of construction on spaces. We just don't have the number of spaces that we would normally have, and that puts a little bit of a ringer in the works. Now, you saw on every slide, I'm going to go backwards for a second here. You saw on every slide, may require fully virtual days for all students to make the conversion happen. You saw it on every slide. On the bottom of this slide, these transition times could be shortened if we were able to work with you as parents and have the students and our staff attend one fully virtual week. So that would give us as many hands on deck here with adults, with teachers, support staff, our assistants, everybody here. If we had one full virtual week of instruction, and you helped us with that, and I know that that's a stretch and very difficult on many of you, so we may not be able to do it. I'll probably be asking you this question later in more of a survey format. We could probably shorten, I know we could shorten the transition times from 2, 4, 2, and 3 weeks. The 2 weeks would probably become 1 week or less. The 4 weeks would probably become 2.5 weeks, and the 3 weeks at the high school would probably be, probably 1.5 weeks, 1 3/4 weeks, in order for us to make the transition. And again, I'm just being transparent with you. We still have school going on, so in its current form. So if we're allowed to make a switch, we don't just snap our fingers. We still have regular school going on, and all the positive things and all the challenges that are happening on a normal day, plus trying to transition. So we felt that if we were able to get one full virtual week of school, we'd really be able to use all of our people here, bang it out, and get it done. Spring break, I had initially said to you, being able to return after spring break, probably not realistic for several reasons. One, we're already almost at the end of the second week from when I said that. So we've lost 2 weeks of time, not because of anything we did, but because a decision hasn't been made to allow us to do it. And secondly, I want people to use their spring break to be able to get away, especially my administrators, our administrators and teachers. It's been, I know it's been a challenging year for you and for your children. It's been a challenging year on our end as well. Keeping everything glued together. So while you'd have me here, but I could only move so many desks over spring break and so on. So we'll see how things come together. But this summary slide, I think, is pretty accurate on how long it would take us to make a full transition to get as many students back as possible. This is from the day we would get the green light. So if we get the green light tonight, Valley would be 2 weeks, Gorham would be 4 weeks, and so on, unless we did a full virtual week, and we would go from there. We would stagger. So for example, if this 2, 4, 2, and 3 week schedule had to be maintained and Valley was able to get students back in 2 weeks, we would let students at Valley come back in 2 weeks. We wouldn't wait for Gorham's 4 weeks to happen, and so on. So thank you. We've worked very well together, and I think it's because we've had open communication, and I want that to continue. So feel free to contact me, see me at a food link distribution, wherever you would like to see me or ask a question or need help, just reach out, and I'll be right here to be able to help you. So, okay, I very much appreciate you watching this today, and have a great rest of the day, great rest of the weekend.